Hi, parents and caregivers. My name is Sarah Picard-Taylor. I'm a staff developer at the Teachers College Reading and Writing Project. My colleagues and I work in your child's school. We spend time with their teachers and their principals, helping think about their reading and writing workshops. And so now you're at home and your children are there with you, and you might be wondering how you can set up a writing space to encourage your child's writing development while they're at home working. We wanted to make this quick video to help you think about supporting your kindergarten, first and second graders with their writing development while they're working at home. I'm a mom too. I live with a second grader, and so I wanted to be able to give you some practical tips, both as a teacher and staff developer, and as a parent, to help you through these couple of weeks together. So the first thing that you'll want to do is just set up a writing space at home. It might be, at your kitchen table. It might be that your kitchen table is full of science experiments. And so you'll want to create a writing space maybe in the living room floor with kids in a clipboard, or their bedroom floor with a clipboard. I would set up that designated space so that when it becomes writing time for your child during the day, they know to go to that space. Having that space carved out is important. They'll need a couple of things, but it's not fancy. Some paper with lines to help them ground their letters on. You can make simple, paper choices like this if you have a printer at home. If you don't, blank white paper, draw a box and draw some lines on it would be helpful. For kindergartners, we usually suggest paper choice with 1 to 3 lines. They can have up to 5. If they want to write more, of course, you can make more lines. This is a great paper choice that I'm holding right now for first graders. Second graders can have a smaller picture box than just lines. Like right now, I wouldn't worry so much about like how many lines exactly should the paper have. I think we just need to give our kids paper to write on. Your kids are used to writing on single side, which can feel not very good for the environment, but they're going to end up revising their writing. So they'll be cutting it and adding more space to add more things in. And if they write on both sides, and they may be cutting parts that they don't want to cut, that's on the other side of the paper. That's why we recommend the single-sided sheets for our very youngest writers. They'll also probably just need a few, simple tools like, pencils, or we really like these, black flare pens, but if you don't have these at home, don't worry. But your kid might be telling you they want one, so I just want you to see what they look like. It's just a simple, thin black marker pen. You may also want to have on hand some scissors, and some tape for them to do that simple revision work that we were just talking about. Their teachers may have sent them home with some other tools that one of my colleagues is going to be talking about, alphabet charts or other spelling charts from their phonics curriculum to help them. Like my daughter has this one at home with the vowel teams to help when she gets to a word that's hard to spell, or this vowel chart that helps her listen and hear for is the vowel that she wants to write in the middle of the word long or short. So you may see some of those. So that's why I feel like they need a big space to write, because they have all these tools with them. They have some spelling tools, they have their paper, they have their scissors. They need some space to create. So that will be helpful. And finally, the last thing they need is just a writing partner, you. Or it could be a sibling, or it could be an aunt or an uncle or another caregiver who would love to be on FaceTime with them to talk with them about their writing. Remember that you don't have to give them prompts like, let's write about how you felt about that trip to the zoo last month. Instead, your job will be to help them mine their own lives for the kinds of what writing they want to create. Now, your child's teacher may have sent them home with specific kind of writing that follows a certain genre, the genre they were studying a writing workshop. So perhaps they were in the middle of writing how-to books, so the teacher will be suggesting they make more how-tos. Or perhaps they were, in the middle of realistic fiction, creating stories with made-up characters and giving their characters little, going on adventures or little problems to solve. So if that is true, then they'll just write in that genre. If not, if the teacher has just said, make sure you write every day, then your job might be just to help them find some ideas for their writing. And I have a couple of helpful ways that you could talk to your kids about finding ideas for their writing. So I'm just going to switch to my document camera so you can see those ways here. Bear with me. Okay. So if you're asking your kids questions to get them thinking about their writing, let me zoom in just a little bit more for you. First, you might want to ask your child to think of what kind of writing she will make. You could ask, what kind of writing will you make? Do you want to make a story about that time at the zoo? Do you want to make an information book to teach about the zoo? Or, ooh, I remember you weren't happy about the bear's small enclosure. Maybe we could write a letter to the zoo to make a change about that bear's enclosure. But give your child a choice in this. Let them know that it's up to them to decide what kind of writing they want to make. Because if they choose, right, what their project is going to be, the energy for it will be sky high. So next, help your child think about the parts of the book. They don't have to write anything on the page just yet. Just give them time to talk with you, to rehearse the writing out loud. So ask if they want to write a nonfiction book. If they want to write a nonfiction book to teach information, let's say it's about the zoo, you can ask what pages will be in your book or what parts will be in your book. For second graders, you could ask, or third graders, you could ask what chapters could be in that book. If kids say they want to write a story to retell that fun moment in their lives, you might say, ooh, that's so exciting. What thing happened in your story? What's the thing that really happened? Cheer them on with a smile and a nod, retell what they said. And then you can ask, like, ooh, so what happened at the zoo? Let's retell that part. Ooh, that was so fun. And for older kids, you might nudge them a little bit to get at the heart of their story or write a more focused moment. You might just say, what was the most important thing about our trip to the zoo? What was your favorite part, right? So that they really get at not just like a long laundry list of everything that happened that day at the zoo, but zooming in on like that moment when you went to feed the deer and they licked the deer feed out of your hand and you turned to your cousin and said, ew, gross. And he said, this is the worst thing we've ever done. And you went running away from the deer. If that's your story. So we're trying to help them get a little bit more focused. If kids notice a problem and want to make a change, like write a sign or a letter to help others, or to request a change in policy, like bear enclosure at the zoo, you could say, like, who could we write to about this problem? What could your sign say? What could your letter say? And then finally, if your kids have had a great experience, like at a bookstore or a restaurant, a children's play place, you could encourage them to write a review. You could ask, what was your opinion of that place? Did you like it? Tell some reasons why you liked it. Our first graders did some of this kind of writing earlier this year, and so some of them will be really fueled up to write some reviews. So after you get your child started on doing some of this writing, you might be wondering, how can I help them make it better? So let's think a little bit about that. Oh, and lots of parents ask me, like, as I sit my kids down to write, how long should they write for and things like that. We'll get to more of that soon. I want to show you just a little video clip of my colleague Amanda. She does some of this work with a first grader at a school where she's showing all of us parents how we can be writing partners to our kids at home and get them started with their writing. So I'm going to share my screen with that video now and show it to you.
Okay, so you just taught me how in your house you clean up after dinner. Let me see if I've got it right. First, you clear the table and clean it. Is that true? Like you take the plates, the cups, the forks, the spoons, everything. Is that true? Okay, good. And I bet you have to be careful not to drop them. Am I right? You have to be careful not to drop them. Okay.
Because the glass will break.
And you don't want glass to break. Because that's dangerous.
And if you're not wearing shoes, you're gonna get hurt.
So when you clear the table, do you wear your shoes?
Yes.
Good idea. Such a good tip. Okay, then you clean the floor with, what do you clean the floor with?
A brush.
Oh, like with the broom?
Yeah,
Okay, you clean it with the broom. Anything I need to be careful about?
About hitting it in your face because the lungs stick.
Good point. Be careful of the stick not to hit it in your face. Okay, great. Then I wash the dishes. Anything I need to know about washing dishes?
Yes.
What do I need to know?
The glass.
What about the glass?
if the people are gonna get hurt.
Oh, so I have to be careful with it, not to break it?
And if it breaks, you need to wipe it with a broom.
Okay. Oh, gosh. Okay. Then, after I wash, then what do I do? I dry. I dry the dishes with... What do I...
paper.
Oh, right. Like a towel?
Great. So you can see Amanda just sitting next to this child as a caregiver, listening to her get ready to write down her book. And so Amanda functioned as a active listener, cheering her on and what she was planning to write, asking questions, and also repeating back. For a writer to hear their words repeated back is very special. It makes you feel like what you're saying is valued and important, and Amanda cheers that on. So we encourage you to do that a little bit with your child before they actually put pencil to paper, to write in the air, we say, to say it out loud and orally rehearse. Then they can pick up their pencil and start writing. So you might be wondering, how long should my child write, or how much should they write each day? And so I just wanted to tell you a little bit about volume standards and expectations for end of the year at each grade. So by the end of kindergarten, teachers are thrilled if kids are, writing like 3 pages a day with 1 to 3 sentences per page. Now when I say 3 pages per day, don't worry, that does not mean like 3 notebook pages per day. That means like 3 of their little paper choices per day. So it's like if they were writing on paper choice that has 2 or 3 lines, they would make 3 of these a day. So their little story, I'll show you one, might have 3 pages about going to the zoo with one drawing of seeing the tiger on one page, a drawing of seeing the bear on the next page, and a drawing of seeing the sea lions on the page after that, with 1 or 2 sentences underneath, like we saw the bear and then we walked over and saw the sea lions, they were barking, right? And then we went to the bear, it was sad, the enclosure was too small. So it's something really short like that is what we're expecting for kindergartners, but I don't want to dismiss it by saying short. It's a lot of work for kindergartners to be able to do, to draw their pictures and then write their sentences. For first graders, you might expect them to write, 2 to 3 pages per day on a paper choice that looks, something like this, or, again, it can be just plain notebook paper or white paper too. And their goal by the end of the year is to make about 12 to 15 sentences per day. A teacher is thrilled with that at end of year in first grade. And in second grade, they write about, some kids will write 2 to 5 pages per day. And the reason why I say that is because some kids are, drafting fast and furiously, and then other kids the next day will go back and revise and add on. So that might not be as much writing, but they're spending their time really thinking, rehearsing, revising, making decisions about what they want to change. And they'll write, anywhere from 15 to 25 sentences per day. It will look, second graders writing by the end of the year, we're hoping will look like a whole notebook page filled up. So if that, if you're translating that from this kind of paper, it might look like 3 to 5 pages with multiple sentences on each page. So you might be wondering, what have my kids been taught in school about writing well? Making sure now I know how to get it all set up and running. How can I help them craft stronger stories? So their teachers may have sent them home with some tools to help them do this. The other thing I think you can, and I'm going to show you some of those tools, the other thing I think you can do at home to help fuel them is talk about audience. I think that right now we're all sort of craving some sort of social connection. And if we can give our kids audiences for their writing, whether that's, someone that we FaceTime and read our writing to, or a friend that we go on Zoom with, or, a neighbor that we fold up our writing and put it in an envelope and put it underneath her doorstep to cheer her up. I think by giving an audience to our writing, it is a built-in motivator to write more, to make it the best we can. And so I have a couple of tips that you could say to your kids to help a little bit with making your writing as strong as it could be. I'm going to switch to the document camera so you can see it. So one thing is if a kid is writing a story and you want to encourage them to add more detail, you can encourage them by thinking about the audience. You know, if a child is writing a story about a time when she was with, let's say, her Aunt Keisha, then you could say something like, you know, Aunt Keisha would love to read your story about the time when you got your ears pierced. She was there with you in that moment too. She's so excited that you're writing about this. She's gonna love that book. Make sure you add the details that will help both of you remember that special time. Wait, what were your favorite parts of that time? Tell me again, what happened exactly? Let's go back and add those details. We can cut that part with scissors and then add more lines so you can add what you wanted to say. So lots of kids, when they wrote stories with their teachers, they had a chart that looked like this. These are the simple elaboration techniques that we taught to kids in first grade. So whether you have a first grader or a second grader, they could try these things. And if you have a sibling who is younger, they could probably try this too. You could unfreeze the people. We call it unfreezing the people, make them move. So instead of just saying like, I went to the store, like, or I went to get my ears pierced, like I skipped into the mall entrance. I couldn't wait to get to the ear piercing boutique, right? Or you can make your people talk. Instead of saying, you know, I asked to get my ears pierced, you could say, I thought I was going to be able to ask, but instead I hid behind my Aunt Keisha. I said, I whispered, you tell the lady I want my ears pierced. So that will help bring out their writing more than just saying, I went into the store, I asked to get my ears pierced. We could also tell it in small steps. Instead of saying like, so then the lady pierced my ears, I could say, so then the lady held up the piercing guns in front of me. She said, are you ready? Oh, I'm making them talk. I said, no, I need to count to 3. So telling it in small steps, right, might help. Or you could encourage your writer to say like, you know, what did she do? What did she do exactly? Well, she held up the piercing gun, and then what did she do? Oh, she touched my ear and put it around my ear. Oh, and then what did she do? Right. Oh, then she pushed the buttons. Right. You could also bring out the inside. You could tell how the people feel, and you could tell what people are thinking. Oh, I thought to myself, this didn't hurt so bad. It wasn't as bad after all. Or I could write what the people were feeling. Like I was feeling excited, but a little bit of pain at the same time. Getting your ears pierced kind of hurts. So the kids might have charts like this in their writing folders, or the teachers might be sending to you digitally shortly. But little charts like this can help remind kids of all the ways they know how to make their writing better. There's one that's similar to this for helping to make information writing stronger. This one is, how can I teach my readers? So if kids are making an information book, like all about the zoo, we can suggest to them that they try some of these. Sorry. So they can think about questions readers might have about the zoo, like where is it? When is it open? How do you get there? We can also teach them to like write in twin sentences. This is a way of saying basically like, our example is like dogs like biscuits. Biscuits are like cookies, that if you write one sentence, you could write another after it to describe one of the things that you've taught about. We could encourage kids to make comparisons, right? Like the shark's teeth are a lot like a knife. We could also list and give examples. This one is really a lovely way to teach kids to elaborate. So if they're gonna say, if they're writing a book, let's say all about Chuck E. Cheese, you know, they might say like, Chuck E. Cheese has lots of games. Some examples are, and then they can list them out, right? Like in soccer, you need lots of equipment, you'll need, and then they can list them out. Lots of kids also like to use this one, size, shape, and color words to help. And they can, in their pictures, they can have characters talking and using speech bubbles to teach, almost like a little narrator on the page, teaching a little bit more. One writer that I was just with that was making a soccer book, and so on the sidelines, he had, in the pictures, he had a coach who kept yelling out little tips to the players, almost a little bit story-like in his nonfiction book. So with that, I just also want to end with showing you some examples of what the kids' writing might look like, just so you can see what to expect. So if your kids want to write information books, let's stick with that because we're looking at that right now. A kindergartner's information book might look a little bit like this. I'll show you one page at a time. This is an all about book, all about dogs. Dogs can lick children. Dogs can jump on you. Dogs can run. Dogs can eat bones. My dog plays with you at home. Sometimes dogs play with you outside. Okay, this goes on to the third page, but this is an example of what a kindergarten all about book might look like. Okay? And then if you were a first grader writing an information book, here's an example. You'll see the increase in volume, and it's also less list-like. This is a book all about whales. Whales are the biggest animals on Earth. The biggest whale, the blue whales, they eat krill, and the smallest animals on Earth. Whales can be gray with white tummies, or with blow tops, and with tummies. And then there's a whole nother chapter here on blowholes. So you'll see, like, as first graders start to write their books, they might be thinking about sections or chapters. And then here's an example of a second grade book that you'll see definitely. We shrunk the pages down so you can see all 4 pages on one page, but the volume is much higher, and you can see how the writer separated it into chapters. Now, if your kids are going to write stories at home, their stories, a kindergarten end of the year story, might look something like this. This is one of our favorites. I was brushing my teeth. Here's page 2. A spider came in my mouth. I spit the spider out. Gross. And I also just wanted to mention that kindergartners can, write their sentences on the page, and they're getting a lot of good practice out of working on labeling things in the picture too. So if your kindergartner does that, it's absolutely a great thing. And then I have a first grade story to show you. So here's an example of a first grade story. And you'll see how this one, the focus is a little bit more narrowed, right? It's not just all about the apple orchard. It's focused in on picking the apple. I went to the apple orchard and I picked an apple. It looked tasty. I took a bite and I loved it. It was so tasty that I picked on that one. Yummy. But when I picked another one, I said, I hear a wasp. I took a step and I was nervous. Ah, wasp! I was so scared that I threw the apple. Then I said, it flew away. I was so happy that I went back, and I lived happily ever after. You can see how that one was a little bit more focused. And the second grade examples look similar, but you might notice that in the second grade examples, there's more inclusion of dialogue, internal thinking, more of the ways that we help kids elaborate in their stories, bring out the feelings and the internal thinking. So this is an example. I was on a bike store and my dad was buying me and my brother a bike. I was so happy. My hands were shaking. I said, thank you, Dad. When I got home, I practiced my bike so I would be good at riding my bike. I was nervous. I said, I could do it to myself. Then I said, it's wiggly. Then my mom said, practice more. So you see how this writer is really stretching out this moment, adding the feelings, adding the dialogue. It goes on to another page. So Families, now that you've seen some sample pieces of kids writing of kindergarten, first and second grade, and we've talked a little bit about how to support them and how to prompt them. We've also talked about some of the tools that they have. One last thing that I want to tell you about before I switch over to one of my colleagues is, really providing them the tools to share their writing during this time. So we mentioned that maybe they could, have a little Zoom party with their friends and read each other their writing. They could fold it up and put it under a neighbor's door. Maybe there's a way that they can be taking pictures of it and posting it up on if the teacher has a blog post up. But really, I think the number one way that they will feel fueled for their writing is by sharing it with others. So I hope you find a way to keep sharing stories, to keep telling stories, and to keep writing alive in your homes. I'd encourage you to do it too. It's one of the things that I think grounds us and reminds us of what's important. I'm going to turn it over to one of my colleagues now who's going to help you with another big question that parents can have when supporting young writers is how do we help kids when they ask us how to help spell a word? And how can we help our young writers, not just with that one word, but grow in their spelling development? It's been a pleasure to talk with you today. We hope to see you soon. Take care.